Amara stood frozen in the doorway of the small Montana farmhouse, her suitcase still in hand, as the man who had paid for her journey across the ocean looked her up and down with disgust in his eyes. The air in the room turned cold as ice despite the summer heat outside. 6 months of letters, promises of a new life, a fresh start in America. All of it seemed to evaporate in that single moment as James Miller's face twisted into a sneer. "You're not what I ordered," he spat, taking a step back. "The agency didn't tell me you'd be so dark." His words cut through her like knives. Amara felt her throat tighten as tears threatened to spill. She had traveled over 8,000 miles from her small village in Nigeria, leaving behind everything she knew, following the promise of a new beginning, a marriage, a family. Now, standing in this strange country with no money to return home, she felt the ground beneath her feet crumble. "Sir, the letters, you said," Amara started, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't care what I said." James cut her off, his voice rising. "This isn't what I paid for. I wanted a proper wife, not this." Amara clutched her simple gold necklace, her mother's parting gift, as if it might somehow protect her from the hatred in his eyes. She had spent her last savings on a new dress for this meeting, wanting to make a good first impression on the man who would become her husband. The blue fabric suddenly felt too tight, too wrong. "I'll call the agency in the morning," James muttered, grabbing his keys from the hook by the door. "You can sleep on the couch tonight. I want you gone by tomorrow afternoon." The door slammed behind him, leaving Amara alone in the silent house. Through the window, she watched his truck kick up dust as it roared down the long driveway. Only when the red taillights disappeared into the distance did she allow herself to sink to the floor, her sobs echoing in the empty home that would never be hers. She didn't know how long she sat there, tears streaming down her face, before she heard a gentle knock at the still open door. Looking up through blurry eyes, she saw a tall figure silhouetted against the setting sun. "Hello? Is everything okay in there?" a deep voice called out. Amara quickly wiped her tears away with the back of her hand, embarrassment washing over her. She struggled to her feet just as the man stepped into the dim light of the entryway. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. His skin was tanned from working outdoors, and his flannel shirt had seen better days. He removed his worn baseball cap, revealing dark hair streaked with hints of silver. "I'm Noah Taylor. I own the farm next door," he said, his eyes taking in her suitcase and tear-stained face with growing concern. "I was driving by and saw James tear out of here like a bat out of hell. Wanted to make sure everything was all right." Amara straightened her dress, trying to gather what little dignity she had left. "I am Amara Okafor. I came from Nigeria to marry Mr. Miller, but it seems there has been a misunderstanding." Noah's expression darkened as understanding dawned on him. "Let me guess. James took one look at you and showed his true colors?" Amara looked down at her hands, unable to meet his gaze. The shame wasn't hers, but somehow she felt it all the same. "That sounds like James," Noah muttered, shaking his head. "Always was a small-minded fool." He looked around the empty house, then back at Amara. "You got anywhere to go?" She shook her head, the reality of her situation hitting her anew. "The agency might help, but I cannot contact them until tomorrow." Noah seemed to consider something for a moment, then nodded as if he'd made up his mind. "I've got a guest house on my property. It's nothing fancy, but it's clean and you'll be safe there until we figure something out." Amara hesitated. In Nigeria, her mother had warned her about trusting strangers, especially men. But what choice did she have? "Why would you help me?" she asked quietly. Noah's smile was warm and genuine. "Because it's the right thing to do. And because I've seen enough injustice in this world to last a lifetime. Now may I help you with your bag?" As they walked out to his truck, the setting sun painted the vast Montana sky in shades of gold and purple. Amara took one last look at the house that had rejected her before climbing into Noah's pickup. She didn't know it yet, but that sunset marked not the end of her American dream, but its true beginning. On the drive to Noah's farm, Amara sat quietly watching the endless fields roll by. She couldn't help but notice how different Noah's truck was from James's, older, well-worn but meticulously maintained. Just like the man himself seemed to be. "Been farming this land for 20 years now," Noah said, breaking the silence. "Started with just 50 acres. Now I own half the valley." Amara's eyes widened. "Your farm is that big?" Noah chuckled, a warm sound that somehow eased the knot in her chest. "Agriculture technology is my business. The farm is where I test new methods, new equipment. Turns out there's good money in helping farmers grow more food with less work." As they crested a hill, Amara gasped. Stretching before them was a sea of golden wheat fields, punctuated by modern buildings and what looked like solar panels. In the distance, a large farmhouse stood surrounded by trees, lights twinkling in the growing darkness. "Welcome to Horizon Farms," Noah said, a hint of pride in his voice. "Home sweet home." For the first time since she'd arrived in America, Amara felt something other than fear and despair. She wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring, but tonight at least she had found kindness in this strange new world. The guest house was far more than Amara had expected. While Noah had described it as nothing fancy, it was easily the nicest place she had ever stayed. Clean pine floors gleamed in the soft light, and large windows looked out over rolling wheat fields that seemed to stretch to the horizon. The furniture was simple but beautiful, with handcrafted wooden pieces that spoke of care and attention. "Kitchen stocked with basics," Noah explained, setting her suitcase down by a plush sofa. "Bathrooms through there, bedrooms in the back. Wi-Fi password is on the fridge." Amara stood in the center of the room, overwhelmed by his kindness and the sheer magnitude of what had happened in the past few hours. "I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. Noah waved away her gratitude. "No need. Like I said, it's what neighbors do." He hesitated, then added, "I'm guessing you haven't eaten. I could fix you something, or if you'd prefer to be alone." The mention of food made Amara realize how hungry she was. Her last meal had been a small sandwich on the final leg of her journey hours ago. Still, she didn't want to impose further. "I can manage," she began, but her stomach chose that moment to growl loudly, betraying her. Noah smiled. "Tell you what. I'll bring something over from the main house. Nothing fancy, just some soup and bread. Give you time to settle in." Before she could protest, he was out the door, leaving Amara alone with her thoughts. She moved to the large window, watching as Noah's tall figure strode across the yard to the main house. In the distance she could see the lights of other buildings, barns perhaps, or equipment sheds. The land seemed to go on forever, so different from her crowded village back home. With a sigh, she turned back to the room. Might as well unpack, though she had no idea how long she would be staying. Her suitcase contained everything she owned in the world: a few dresses, some practical clothes, a photo of her family, and her mother's Bible. She had sold nearly everything else to pay for her journey. The bedroom was as lovely as the rest of the guest house, with a queen-sized bed covered in a handmade quilt and bedside lamps that cast a warm glow. Amara carefully hung her clothes in the cedar closet, breathing in the sweet, woodsy scent. She placed the photo of her family, her mother, father, and 2 younger brothers, on the nightstand where she could see it upon waking. In the bathroom she splashed cool water on her face, trying to wash away the tear stains. The woman who looked back at her from the mirror seemed both familiar and strange. Same dark eyes, same high cheekbones that her mother always said made her look like a queen. But there was something new there too: fear, yes, but also a determination she hadn't known she possessed. "You will survive this," she whispered to her reflection. "You will find a way." A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Noah stood on the porch with a tray containing a steaming bowl of soup, fresh bread, and what looked like apple pie. "Hope you like chicken and wild rice," he said, setting the tray on the small dining table. "Mrs. Bennett, she's my housekeeper, insists everyone needs pie when they're having a rough day. Can't say I disagree with her." The aroma of the food made Amara's mouth water. "It smells wonderful. Thank you." Noah rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly seeming unsure. "Listen about tomorrow. I talked to Mrs. Bennett, and she mentioned her sister works at the county office. She might be able to help figure out your options. If you want, that is." Amara nodded gratefully. "That would be very kind." "Good, that's good." Noah backed toward the door. "Well, I'll let you eat in peace. There's a phone by the bed if you need anything. Just dial 0, it'll ring to the main house." After he left, Amara sat at the table and took her first spoonful of soup. It was rich and hearty, warming her from the inside out. As she ate, she tried to make sense of the day's events. This morning, she had been so full of hope, dreaming of meeting the man whose letters had promised her a loving home. Now that dream was shattered, replaced by uncertainty. Yet somehow, against all odds, she had found kindness in this strange land. Noah Taylor owed her nothing, yet he had opened his home to her without hesitation. Perhaps America wasn't all like James Miller after all. After finishing her meal, including every crumb of the delicious apple pie, Amara felt exhaustion wash over her. The emotional toll of the day combined with her long journey caught up to her all at once. She barely managed to change into her nightgown before collapsing onto the bed. The last thing she remembered before drifting off to sleep was the distant sound of a coyote calling to the moon, a lonely, haunting sound that somehow fit her current state of being, lost but free. Amara dreamed of home that night. Of her mother's hands braiding her hair, of her father's deep laugh, of her brothers chasing each other through fields of cassava. She dreamed of the day she had opened the letter from the American marriage agency, telling her she had been matched. How her entire village had celebrated, seeing it as a blessing, a chance for one of their own to find prosperity and perhaps help others follow. What would they think of her now? Rejected, abandoned, dependent on the charity of a stranger? She woke with the first light of dawn, disoriented for a moment before remembering where she was. Through the window she could see the sun rising over the wheat fields, painting them gold. It was beautiful, in a way completely different from the lush greenery of her homeland. A soft knock at the door roused her fully. Throwing on a robe over her nightgown, she padded to the door to find an elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes standing on the porch with a basket. "Good morning, dear. I'm Martha Bennett, Noah's housekeeper. Thought you might like some breakfast." The woman's smile was warm and genuine, with no hint of the disgust James had shown. "Thank you," Amara said, stepping back to let her in. "Please come in." Martha bustled in, setting the basket on the table and unpacking fresh muffins, fruit, and a thermos of coffee. "Noah told me what happened. That James Miller never was worth the dirt he walks on, if you don't mind my saying so." Amara couldn't help but smile at the woman's forthright manner. "You've known him long?" "Known all the families around here for 40 years, Martha said, pouring coffee into a mug and handing it to Amara. "Noah's the best of them, though. Heart as big as this whole valley." Amara sipped the coffee, savoring its rich flavor. "He has been very kind to me." Martha's eyes twinkled. "Well, it's not every day a beautiful woman drops into his life. That man spends too much time with his machines and not enough with people, if you ask me." Before Amara could respond to that surprising statement, the door opened again and Noah himself appeared, dressed in work clothes, a folder tucked under his arm. "Morning," he said, nodding to both women. "I see you've met Mrs. Bennett." "Just getting acquainted," Martha said with a smile that suggested she'd been saying more than she should. "I'll leave you two to talk. My sister will be here around 10, dear," she added to Amara before heading out the door. Noah seemed almost nervous as he set the folder on the table. "I made some calls this morning. There are options if you want to stay in the country." "Options?" Amara asked, hope flickering to life inside her. "The agency that brought you here has a responsibility," Noah explained, opening the folder to reveal printouts of legal information. "They can't just abandon you because James changed his mind. There are laws protecting people in your situation." Amara sank into a chair, overwhelmed by this new information. "I didn't know. Most people don't." Noah sat across from her, his expression serious. "There's something else. I could use help around here. Field office needs someone organized, good with people. It's not glamorous, but it's a job. Comes with the guest house if you want it." Amara stared at him, unable to believe what she was hearing. "You would do that? For a stranger?" Noah's eyes met hers, steady and sincere. "You wouldn't be a stranger for long. And everyone deserves a chance to build the life they want." In that moment, sitting across from this man who had shown her nothing but kindness since the moment they met, Amara felt something shift inside her. A small seed of hope, taking root where before there had been only despair. "I would like that very much," she said softly. "Thank you." Noah's smile lit up his entire face. "Then welcome to Horizon Farms, Amara. I think you're going to fit in just fine." The next few weeks passed in a blur as Amara settled into her new life at Horizon Farms. The job Noah had offered turned out to be far more interesting than she had expected. The field office was actually a modern building at the heart of the farm's operations, filled with computers monitoring everything from soil moisture to market prices. "Most people think farming is just tractors and dirt," Noah explained on her first day, showing her around the facility. "But these days it's as much about data as it is about crops." Amara's role involved coordinating with suppliers, scheduling equipment maintenance, and handling phone calls from farmers interested in Noah's agricultural technology. Her organizational skills, honed from years of helping run her family's small business back home, proved invaluable. "You're a natural," Noah told her after she successfully reorganized the filing system her first week. The pride in his voice made her stand a little taller. Mrs. Bennett became a frequent visitor to the guest house, bringing home-cooked meals and stories about the area's history. Through her, Amara learned that Noah wasn't just a successful farmer. He was one of the wealthiest men in the state, having invented several key technologies that had revolutionized modern farming. "He never talks about the money," Mrs. Bennet confided over tea one afternoon. Says it's just a tool like any other. He doesn't live like a rich man, Amara observed, thinking of the well-worn trucks and Noah's simple clothing. Mrs. Bennet smiled knowingly. That's because he puts it all back into the community. The new wing at the hospital, the scholarships at the high school, all Noah's doing, though he'd never admit it. With each new piece of information, Amara found herself more intrigued by her employer. Unlike James, who had boasted about himself in every letter, Noah seemed determined to hide his light under a bushel. As for James, he had become nothing more than an unpleasant memory. Amara had learned through Mrs. Bennet's sister that he had tried to demand a refund from the marriage agency, only to be informed that his contract explicitly stated no refunds once a match had traveled to the United States. Serves him right, Mrs. Bennet had said with satisfaction. Some men don't deserve good things. One evening, about a month after her arrival, Amara was working late in the office when Noah appeared in the doorway, holding 2 mugs of coffee. Thought you might need this, he said, setting one mug on her desk. You've been at it for hours. Just finishing the quarterly report, Amara replied, gratefully accepting the coffee. The numbers look good. Noah pulled up a chair across from her desk. They look better than good. The new irrigation system is outperforming all projections. And I've got you to thank for spotting that pattern in the data. Amara felt her cheeks warm at the praise. It was nothing. Just something I noticed. It wasn't nothing, Noah insisted. You've got a good eye for details most people miss. They fell into a comfortable silence, sipping their coffee as the sun set outside the large windows, painting the sky in fiery oranges and reds. Amara found herself stealing glances at Noah, noticing the way the fading light caught in his hair, the thoughtful set of his mouth. Penny for your thoughts? Noah asked, catching her looking. Amara hesitated, then decided on honesty. I was just thinking how different you are from what I expected America to be like. Noah raised an eyebrow. Is that good or bad? Good, she said softly. Very good. Something shifted in Noah's expression, a softening around his eyes that made Amara's heart beat a little faster. Before he could respond, however, his phone buzzed. Checking it, he sighed. Emergency at the North Field. Irrigation pumps acting up again. He stood, downing the last of his coffee. Rain check on this conversation? Amara nodded, trying not to show her disappointment. Of course. After he left, she sat for a long time, staring out at the darkening fields. For the first time since arriving in Montana, she allowed herself to acknowledge what she had been feeling for days now, an attraction to Noah that went beyond gratitude for his kindness. Back in the guest house that night, Amara wrote a long email to her family, something she did every week. She told them about her job, about the beauty of Montana in early autumn, about the kindness of the people she had met. What she didn't tell them was how her heart raced whenever Noah was near, or how she found herself looking forward to their brief conversations throughout the day. Some things, she decided, were better kept to herself until she understood them better. The next morning, Amara arrived at the office to find a small potted plant on her desk, an African violet with deep purple blooms. A simple note beside it read, "Reminded me of you. Strong and beautiful even far from home." And the gesture, so simple yet so thoughtful, brought tears to her eyes. Back home, such a gift might have signaled romantic intentions. But here in America she wasn't sure. Could it simply be the kindness of an employer to his employee? Or was it something more? Her thoughts were interrupted by Mrs. Bennet, who bustled into the office carrying a basket of fresh muffins. The older woman took one look at the African violet and smiled knowingly. I see Noah's been at it again, she said, setting down the basket. That man hasn't given flowers to anyone since high school. Amara felt her cheeks grow warm. It's just a plant, Mrs. Bennet. The housekeeper's laugh was kind but knowing. Oh honey, that's what he wants you to think. Too scared to make a proper move if you ask me. Before Amara could respond, the office door opened again, and Noah himself walked in, his hair still damp from a shower, smelling of soap and fresh air. He stopped short when he saw Mrs. Bennet, looking almost guilty. Morning, ladies, he said, his eyes flickering to the plant on Amara's desk. Everything all right here? Just perfect, Mrs. Bennet said with a wink at Amara. I was just leaving. You two have a good day now. As the door closed behind her, Noah rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture Amara had come to recognize as a sign of nervousness. About the plant, he began. I hope it wasn't inappropriate. I just saw it at the nursery in town and thought. It's beautiful, Amara interrupted, saving him from his fumbling explanation. Thank you. It reminds me of ones my mother grew back home. The relief on his face was almost comical. Good. That's good. I know it's been hard being so far from your family. The fact that he had thought about her feelings, about her homesickness, touched Amara deeply. James had never once asked about her family or her life in Nigeria in all their correspondence. Yes, but it gets easier every day, she said truthfully. This place, it's starting to feel like somewhere I could belong. Something flashed in Noah's eyes, hope perhaps or something deeper. But before he could speak, his phone rang. Checking the caller ID, he sighed. The governor's office. I have to take this. He hesitated at the door. Dinner tonight? At the main house. Mrs. Bennett's making her famous pot roast. Amara smiled, her heart light. I'd like that very much. As Noah took his call outside, Amara gently touched one of the violet's soft petals. Perhaps America wasn't going to be what she had originally planned. Perhaps it would be something much, much better. The dinner invitation marked a turning point in Amara and Noah's relationship. What had begun as employer and employee gradually shifted into something deeper, more personal. They began sharing meals regularly, sometimes at the main house with Mrs. Bennett fussing over them, sometimes alone on the guesthouse porch, watching the sunset paint the wheat fields gold. Noah told her about growing up on his family's small farm, his passion for finding ways to make farming more efficient and sustainable, the tragedy of losing both parents in a car accident 10 years ago. Amara shared stories of her village, her dreams of becoming a teacher someday, the challenges that had led her to seek a new life in America. I never thought I'd sign up with a marriage agency, she admitted one evening as they sat side by side on the porch swing. It seemed so desperate. But after my father got sick, the medical bills were crushing us. A husband in America seemed like the answer to all our problems. Noah's hand found hers in the gathering darkness, his touch warm and reassuring. I'm sorry James turned out to be such a disappointment. Amara turned to him, the porch light illuminating the sincerity in his eyes. I'm not anymore. If he hadn't rejected me, I wouldn't be here now. The implication hung in the air between them, neither quite ready to put words to what was growing between them. Instead, Noah squeezed her hand gently before letting go, the moment passing like a summer breeze. At work, Amara continued to impress everyone with her quick mind and strong work ethic. When one of the international buyers visited and discovered she spoke 3 languages fluently, her responsibilities expanded to include helping with overseas clients. You should give her a raise, Mrs. Bennett told Noah bluntly one day, not realizing Amara was within earshot in the next room. That girl's worth her weight in gold and you know it. It's not about the money, Noah replied quietly. I don't want her to stay because she needs the job. I want her to stay because she wants to. The word sent a warm glow through Amara's chest. He wanted her to stay. Not just as an employee but as, what exactly? She wasn't entirely sure, but she knew she wasn't ready to leave Horizon Farms, or Noah, anytime soon. As autumn deepened, bringing cooler nights and changing leaves, Noah invited Amara to accompany him to the Harvest Festival in town. It wasn't exactly a date, he explained hastily, just a community event that everyone attended. Of course, Amara agreed, trying not to show her disappointment at his careful clarification. I'd love to see more of the town. The day of the festival dawned clear and crisp. Amara dressed carefully in a burgundy sweater and jeans that Mrs. Bennett had helped her shop for, adding a touch of lip gloss and her mother's gold necklace. When Noah arrived to pick her up, his eyes widened appreciatively. You look beautiful, he said, then immediately looked embarrassed as if he hadn't meant to speak the thought aloud. Amara smiled, taking in his own cleaned-up appearance, dark jeans and a blue button-down shirt that brought out the color of his eyes. You clean up pretty well yourself, Mr. Taylor. The festival was held in the town square, with booths selling everything from homemade jams to handcrafted furniture. Children ran laughing between hay bales and carved pumpkins, while a local band played country music from a small stage. As they walked through the crowd, Amara couldn't help but notice the curious glances sent their way. Some were friendly, some less so. She was, after all, a newcomer, and a black one at that, in a predominantly white rural community, walking beside one of the area's most eligible bachelors. Don't mind them, Noah murmured, noticing her discomfort. Small towns run on gossip. They'll find something new to talk about next week. A sharp voice from behind them proved him wrong. Well, if it isn't the great Noah Taylor, slumming it with the mail order reject. They turned to find James Miller standing there, a beer in hand and meanness in his eyes. 2 other men flanked him, looking uncomfortable but making no move to stop him. Noah's jaw tightened. Walk away, James. You're drunk. James ignored him, his gaze fixed on Amara. Did he tell you he's just using you for the tax write-off? Noah loves his charity cases. Amara felt the words like a physical blow. Was that all she was to Noah? A charity case? A tax write-off? Before she could react, Noah stepped forward, his voice dangerously low. Apologize to the lady, James? Now. James sneered. Or what? You'll buy my farm too? Add it to your collection? No, Noah said calmly. I'll remind everyone here about the time in 11th grade when you wet yourself at the state fair because you were too scared to ride the Ferris wheel. The color drained from James's face as titters of laughter erupted from those within earshot. Without another word, he turned and stalked away, his friends following after shooting apologetic glances their way. Noah turned to Amara, concern etched on his face. I'm sorry about that. James always was a mean drunk. But the damage was done. The seed of doubt planted by James's words had taken root in Amara's mind. She managed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It's fine. Could we maybe go home? I'm feeling a bit tired. The drive back to the farm was quiet, tension hanging between them like a heavy curtain. When they reached the guest house, Amara thanked Noah politely but quickly for the outing and went inside, closing the door firmly behind her. Alone, she paced the small living room, James's accusation echoing in her mind. Was Noah really just helping her out of pity? Was she nothing more than a good deed to him? A soft knock at the door interrupted her spiraling thoughts. She opened it to find Noah standing there, his expression troubled. Can we talk? He asked. Please? Reluctantly, Amara stepped back to let him in. They sat at opposite ends of the sofa, the distance between them feeling greater than the few feet of cushion. What James said. Noah began. Is it true? Amara interrupted, needing to know. Am I just a charity case to you? The hurt that flashed across Noah's face was answer enough, but he spoke anyway, his voice raw with emotion. Is that what you think of me? That I'd offer you a job, a home, my friendship, just for a tax write-off? Put that way, it did sound ridiculous. Amara looked down at her hands. No, I don't think that. But sometimes I wonder why you've been so kind to me. We were strangers. Noah was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft but steady. My grandmother came to this country as a war bride from Germany. Didn't speak a word of English. The town wasn't exactly welcoming at first. This was right after World War II and feelings were still raw. He leaned forward, his eyes holding hers. She used to tell me stories about the people who showed her kindness when she needed it most. How it made all the difference. I guess I've always tried to live up to that example. Relief washed through Amara, followed quickly by shame for doubting him. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have listened to James. No, Noah agreed with a small smile. He's about the last person anyone should listen to. The tension broken, they fell into easier conversation, the festival incident fading into the background. By the time Noah left, things between them felt almost back to normal. Almost but not quite. Because as Amara prepared for bed that night, she couldn't stop thinking about the look in Noah's eyes when he'd called her his friendship. Almost as if he'd been about to say something else entirely. Something that frightened and thrilled her in equal measure. The morning after the Harvest Festival incident, Amara woke with a determination to put James Miller's words behind her. Noah had been nothing but kind and respectful since the day they met, and she wouldn't let one bitter man's jealousy poison what they had built. Still, there was a new awareness between them now, a subtle shift neither seemed ready to acknowledge. When their hands accidentally touched passing documents, they both lingered a moment too long. Their eyes met across rooms with unspoken questions. The air seemed charged whenever they were alone together, filled with words unsaid. With Thanksgiving approaching, the farm grew busier than ever. The harvest was complete, but equipment needed winterizing, and Noah was testing a new seed variety in the greenhouse complex. Amara found herself working closely with him on the project, analyzing data and helping coordinate with scientists from the agricultural university. You have a real talent for this, Noah told her one afternoon as they reviewed results together. Have you ever thought about going back to school? Montana State has an excellent agricultural sciences program. The question caught Amara off guard. School? Here in America? Noah nodded, pushing a brochure across the desk to her. There's a scholarship program for international students. Applications are due next month for the spring semester. Amara stared at the glossy pages, a whole new future suddenly opening before her. I never thought. After what happened with James, I was just focusing on surviving here. You've done more than survive, Noah said softly. You've thrived. And I think you could do amazing things with the right education. The confidence in his voice, his unwavering belief in her abilities, made Amara's heart swell. I'll think about it, she promised. That evening, as she read through the brochure in the guest house, a knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Expecting Noah or Mrs. Bennet, she was shocked to find James Miller standing on her porch, his expression unreadable. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, keeping the door mostly closed between them. "I came to apologize," he said, looking uncomfortable. "For what I said at the festival. And for how I treated you when you first arrived." Amara regarded him skeptically. "Why now?" James shifted his weight, looking everywhere but at her. "Noah came to see me yesterday. Made some things clear." Alarm shot through her. "What things? What did he do?" "Nothing like that," James said quickly. "Just talk. Man has a way of making you see yourself differently, you know? Anyway, I was wrong. About a lot of things. That's all I came to say." Before she could respond, he turned and hurried back to his truck, leaving Amara staring after him in confusion. What exactly had Noah said to him? And why hadn't Noah mentioned this visit? The next morning she found herself unable to focus on her work, her mind swirling with questions about Noah's visit to James. When Noah came into the office around midday, she couldn't hold back anymore. "You went to see James?" she asked without preamble. Noah froze, coffee mug halfway to his lips. "He told you. He came by the guest house last night. To apologize." Amara crossed her arms. "Why didn't you tell me you went to see him?" Setting down his mug, Noah sighed. "I didn't want you to think I was fighting your battles for you. I know you can handle yourself. I couldn't let his words stand." "What exactly did you say to him?" Noah's gaze was steady. "The truth. That he had insulted an extraordinary woman who deserves nothing but respect. That his prejudice was his loss and my gain." Heat rushed to Amara's cheeks at his words. "Your gain." Something vulnerable flickered in Noah's eyes before he looked away. "The farm's gain. You've become invaluable here." The clarification stung more than it should have. Amara nodded stiffly. "I see. Well, thank you for standing up for me, but in the future I'd appreciate it if you'd tell me about these things." "Of course," Noah agreed quickly. "I'm sorry. It won't happen again." The rest of the day passed in awkward politeness, both of them careful to keep their distance, their conversation strictly professional. By evening, Amara felt exhausted from the effort of pretending nothing was wrong. As she walked back to the guest house under a sky turning purple with sunset, she heard the rumble of Noah's truck approaching. He pulled up beside her, rolling down the window. "Dinner at the main house tonight?" he asked, his expression hopeful. "Mrs. Bennet made apple crisp. Your favorite." The peace offering was hard to resist. "All right," Amara agreed. "Let me just change first." At dinner, with Mrs. Bennet cheerfully filling any silence with stories about Thanksgiving's past, the tension between them gradually eased. By dessert, they were laughing together again, the afternoon's awkwardness fading like morning mist. Later, as Noah walked her back to the guest house under a sky brilliant with stars, Amara gathered her courage. "Why did you really go see James?" she asked softly. Noah was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and intense. "Because when he looked at you with disgust, all I could see was how blind he was. How he missed the most beautiful, intelligent, kind-hearted woman I've ever met, all because of the color of your skin." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "And it made me furious. Not just for you but for him. For all he'll never know." Amara's heart hammered in her chest. "Noah." "I know," he said quickly, backing away slightly. "I'm your boss. You work for me. There are a dozen reasons why I shouldn't say these things. But James's words at the festival. They made me realize I can't keep pretending this is just friendship. Not for me." The world seemed to still around them, even the night sounds of the farm fading as Amara processed his words. "What is it then? For you?" Noah took a deep breath. "Something I never expected. Something I wasn't looking for. Something that scares me half to death if I'm being honest." "Me too," Amara whispered. His eyes found hers in the darkness. "Really?" She nodded, unable to form words around the emotions swelling in her chest. Slowly, giving her every chance to back away, Noah reached out to touch her cheek. His fingers were warm against her skin, calloused from years of work but infinitely gentle. "Amara," he murmured, her name a prayer on his lips. "May I?" Before he could finish, she closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his. The kiss was soft at first, questioning, then deepening as his arms came around her, pulling her close. She felt as though she were falling and flying at the same time, lost in the warmth of his embrace, the taste of apple and cinnamon on his lips. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Noah rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since the first week you were here," he confessed. Amara smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in months. "What took you so long?" His answering laugh was like sunshine breaking through clouds. "Fear. Doubt. The worry that you might only see me as the man who gave you a job when you needed one. Is that what's been holding you back?" she asked, understanding dawning. "You thought I'd feel obligated?" Noah nodded, his expression serious again. "I never want you to feel like you have to return my feelings because of what I've done. Your job, your home here, they're yours regardless." The care he took with her feelings, his determination to ensure her independence even at the cost of his own happiness, only made Amara love him more. Well, the word appeared in her mind unbidden, but she didn't shy away from it. "Noah Taylor," she said, taking his face between her hands. "I am not kissing you out of gratitude or obligation. I'm kissing you because ever since I arrived at your farm, you've shown me what a good man truly is. Not through grand gestures but through 1,000 small kindnesses. And because when I think about my future now, I can't imagine it without you in it." The look of wonder on his face was worth every word of her confession. This time when he kissed her, there was no hesitation, only joy and the promise of something new and beautiful growing between them. As they walked hand in hand the rest of the way to the guest house, Amara felt as though a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. The path ahead wasn't clear yet, there were still questions to answer, challenges to face, but for the first time since arriving in America she felt truly at home. "Stay for coffee?" she asked as they reached her door. Noah smiled, bringing her hand to his lips. "I'd like that. Very much." Inside, as they moved around the small kitchen together, preparing coffee with the easy familiarity of people who know each other well, Amara felt a contentment she hadn't known was possible. This wasn't the life she had planned when she boarded that plane months ago, but somehow, it was turning out to be exactly the life she needed. December arrived with a flurry of snow and activity. The farm entered its quieter season, but Noah's agricultural technology business continued at full speed, with farmers from across the country interested in implementing his systems before spring planting. Amara's role expanded as Noah began bringing her to business meetings, valuing her insight and perspective. Their professional relationship remained respectful and proper during work hours, but evenings and weekends were spent exploring their growing feelings for each other. They took drives through the snow-covered countryside, had dinner at the small Italian restaurant in town, and spent quiet evenings by the fireplace in Noah's house, talking for hours about everything and nothing. Noah taught Amara to play chess. She taught him traditional Nigerian card games. They discovered a shared love of old movies and spent a whole Sunday watching Hitchcock films during a snowstorm. Through it all, Noah remained considerate of Amara's independence, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. "We have time," he would say whenever a moment between them grew too intense. "All the time in the world." Mrs. Bennett watched their blossoming relationship with undisguised approval. "Never seen him this happy," she confided to Amara one afternoon as they prepared Christmas cookies in the main house kitchen. "Man's been alone too long." He mentioned a previous relationship once, Amara said carefully, cutting star shapes from the gingerbread dough. "Someone named Catherine?" Mrs. Bennett's hand stilled on the rolling pin. "That was years ago. College sweetheart. She wanted the big city life, not a farm in Montana. Can't blame her really, but it broke his heart when she left." "He doesn't talk about it," Amara observed. "Noah keeps his hurts private," Mrs. Bennett said wisely. "But don't worry. The way he looks at you? That man is all in, honey." Amara hoped so, because she was falling deeper in love with Noah Taylor with each passing day. The way he listened when she spoke, really listened. How his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. The passion in his voice when he talked about sustainable farming. The gentleness of his hands when he helped her over icy patches on their walks. The morning of December 15th started like any other. Amara arrived at the office early to prepare for a video conference with potential investors from California. She was reviewing her notes when the office door opened, but instead of Noah, a striking blonde woman in an expensive coat stood in the doorway. "Can I help you?" Amara asked, rising from her desk. The woman's perfectly made-up face registered surprise, followed by something less pleasant. "I'm looking for Noah Taylor. He's in the greenhouse complex this morning. Can I tell him who's asking?" The woman stepped fully into the office, removing her designer sunglasses to reveal eyes the color of Arctic ice. Catherine Daniels. His fiancée. The word hit Amara like a physical blow. Fiancé? Noah had never mentioned any engagement. There must be some mistake, she managed, her voice surprisingly steady despite the roaring in her ears. Noah isn't engaged. Catherine's perfect eyebrows arched. We had a disagreement. I went to Paris for a while to clear my head. Now I'm back. Her gaze traveled over Amara, assessing and dismissive. And you are? Amara Okafor. I work for Noah. The reduction of their relationship to merely professional tasted bitter on her tongue, but what else could she say? That they had been dating for weeks? That just last night he had held her close under the stars and whispered that she was changing his life? Ah, the help. Catherine smiled thinly. Well, Amara, be a dear and tell Noah I'm waiting for him at the house. I still have my key. Before Amara could respond, Catherine turned and swept out of the office, leaving behind only the lingering scent of expensive perfume and the wreckage of Amara's happiness. For several minutes, Amara couldn't move, her mind spinning with questions. Had Noah been lying to her all this time? Was their relationship just a diversion while he waited for Catherine to return? Had she been nothing more than a naive fool, falling for her employer's kindness and mistaking it for something deeper? She was still standing there, numb with shock, when Noah burst through the door, his expression frantic. Amara. Mrs. Bennett said Catherine is here. Have you seen her? The panic in his voice only confirmed her worst fears. She was looking for you, Amara said coldly. I told her where you were. She said she'd wait at the house. Noah ran a hand through his hair, looking more distressed than Amara had ever seen him. This is not what you think. You have a fiancé, Noah? The words came out flat, emotionless. A fiancé you never mentioned. Had, he corrected urgently. Past tense. Very past tense. We broke up 3 years ago. That's not what she thinks. Noah's face darkened. Catherine has always had a selective memory, especially when it comes to our relationship. He moved closer, reaching for her hands, but Amara stepped back. Don't. The hurt in his eyes was almost unbearable, but Amara steeled herself against it. She had been down this road before, believing a man's promises only to have them turn to dust. Please, Noah said softly. Let me explain. I think you should go talk to your fiancé, Amara replied, turning away so he wouldn't see the tears threatening to spill. We have that investor call in an hour. I'll handle it if you're detained. Amara, look at me, Noah pleaded. When she reluctantly met his gaze, he continued, his voice low and intense. Catherine and I were engaged, yes. 3 years ago. She decided farming in Montana wasn't glamorous enough for her and left for New York. I haven't seen or spoken to her in over 2 years. She has a key to your house, Amara pointed out. Noah sighed heavily. I never changed the locks. Never thought I needed to. Clearly I was wrong. It sounded plausible, but doubt had taken root in Amara's heart. You should go, she said again. Sort this out. We'll talk later. For a moment, it looked like Noah might argue further, but finally he nodded. This isn't over, Amara. What we have, it's real. Please believe that. After he left, Amara sat at her desk, feeling as though her world had been turned upside down for the second time since arriving in America. The first rejection, James's cruel dismissal, had been painful but straightforward. This new betrayal, if that's what it was, cut deeper because she had let herself trust again, let herself believe in the possibility of happiness. The investor call came and went. Amara managed to sound professional and engaged, but her mind was elsewhere, imagining Noah and Catherine together in the house she had come to think of as a second home. Were they reconciling? Had Noah been waiting for Catherine all along? By late afternoon, with no word from Noah, Amara decided she couldn't stay in the office any longer. She bundled up against the cold and headed for the guest house, planning to pack her few belongings. She wasn't sure where she would go, but staying at Horizon Farms suddenly felt impossible. As she crossed the snowy yard, she saw Noah's truck parked outside the guest house. He was sitting on the porch steps, seemingly oblivious to the cold, his face set in grim lines. I've been waiting for you, he said as she approached. Where's Catherine? Amara asked, unable to keep the hurt from her voice. Gone. Back to wherever she came from. Noah stood, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. I made it very clear that she and I have no future together. Hope flickered to life in Amara's chest, but she tamped it down. Just like that? After she came all this way? Noah's expression hardened. Catherine didn't come here to reconcile, Amara. She came because her new relationship failed and she thought she could fall back on me. It's a pattern with her. Has been since college. And you always take her back? Amara couldn't keep the accusation from her voice. No, Noah said firmly. Not this time. Not ever again. He took a step toward her, his eyes pleading. Because this time, my heart belongs to someone else. Someone real and honest and true. The sincerity in his voice made Amara want to believe him, but fear held her back. How do I know you're telling the truth? How do I know this isn't just another man making promises he won't keep? Noah reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Amara's heart nearly stopped as he held it out to her. This was my grandmother's, he said quietly. I've had it in my safe for years, waiting for the right woman to give it to. With trembling fingers, Amara opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. Noah. I'm not proposing, he said quickly. Not yet. It's too soon and we both know it. But I want you to have this as a promise. A promise that what we have is real and lasting and true. Tears filled Amara's eyes, spilling over to freeze on her cheeks in the winter air. I don't know what to say. Noah gently closed her fingers around the box. Say you'll give me a chance to prove myself. Say you won't leave. Say you believe in us as much as I do. In that moment, looking into his earnest eyes, Amara made her choice. It wasn't easy to trust again, to believe in love after everything she had been through. But standing there in the snow with Noah, she knew that some risks were worth taking. I believe in us, she whispered, and was rewarded with the most beautiful smile she had ever seen. Noah pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. Thank you, he murmured against her hair. They stood together as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, two people who had found each other against all odds, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together. Christmas came to Horizon Farms in a flurry of decorations, baking, and holiday preparations. Mrs. Bennett transformed the main house into a winter wonderland, with garlands on every staircase and a 12-foot Christmas tree in the great room. The scent of gingerbread and pine needles filled the air, and Christmas music played softly from hidden speakers. For Amara it was a bittersweet time. While she was happier than she had ever been with Noah, the holiday season brought homesickness for her family in Nigeria. Christmas had always been a big celebration in her village, with the whole community coming together for church services, feasting, and dancing. You're quiet today, Noah observed one evening as they sat by the fire, wrapping gifts for the farm employees' children. Thinking about home? Amara nodded, running her finger along a ribbon. My youngest brother, Ease, always wakes everyone before dawn on Christmas morning. He'll be so excited this year, he's finally old enough to join the men in the traditional dancing. You miss them, Noah said softly. It wasn't a question. Yes, Amara admitted. Especially now. But I've been sending money home every month. My father's medical bills are paid, and they're even adding a room to the house. That means more to me than being there myself. Noah was quiet for a moment, his hands still on the half-wrapped toy truck. What if you didn't have to choose? Amara looked up, puzzled. What do you mean? What if you could be here with me, and still see your family for Christmas? Noah, Nigeria is thousands of miles away. I can't just pop over for dinner. His smile was mysterious. Maybe not. But perhaps they could come here. Amara's heart skipped a beat. What are you saying? I've been thinking about this for a while, Noah confessed. I know how much you miss them. So, I may have sent some emails, made some calls, arranged some visas. Noah Taylor, Amara breathed, hardly daring to hope. What have you done? His grin widened. Check your phone. With trembling fingers, Amara pulled out her phone to find a new email. It contained flight confirmations for her parents and two brothers, departing from Lagos and arriving in Montana on December 23rd, just 3 days away. You didn't, she whispered, tears filling her eyes. I did, Noah confirmed, looking both pleased and nervous. If it's too much too soon I can? Amara cut him off by throwing herself into his arms, knocking over a box of ribbons in the process. Thank you, she said fiercely between kisses. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Noah laughed, holding her close. So you're happy about this? Happy doesn't begin to cover it, Amara said, pulling back to look at him with wonder. But Noah, the expense for international flights must have cost a fortune. He shrugged, suddenly looking a little embarrassed. I have plenty of money, Amara. And there's nothing I'd rather spend it on than making you happy. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Mrs. Bennett went into overdrive, cooking traditional Nigerian dishes alongside American Christmas favorites. The guest house was transformed into a comfortable home for Amara's family, with fresh linens, flowers, and small welcome gifts in each room. Amara found herself torn between anxiety and excitement. Would her family approve of Noah? Would they understand the feelings she had developed for this American farmer? Would they think less of her for failing in her original purpose, to marry James Miller? "You're overthinking this," Noah told her gently as they drove to the airport on the 23rd. "Your family loves you. They'll be happy you're happy." Amara squeezed his hand, grateful for his steady presence. "I know. It's just, this isn't what any of us planned." "The best things in life rarely are," Noah replied with a smile that warmed her from the inside out. The moment Amara saw her family coming through the arrival gate, all her worries vanished. Her mother, elegant in her traditional wrapper and head tie, spotted her first and let out a joyful cry. Her father, looking healthier than Amara had seen him in years, beamed with pride. And her brothers, Chitty and Ease, had grown so much in the months she'd been away that she barely recognized them. There were tears and laughter and so many hugs Amara lost count. When she finally remembered to introduce Noah, who had been standing back to give them space, her mother surprised her by pulling him into a warm embrace. "So this is the man who has been taking care of our daughter," she said, her English accented but clear. "We have much to thank you for, Mr. Taylor." Noah looked slightly flustered but pleased. "Please call me Noah. And there's no need for thanks. Amara has been the one taking care of the farm, and me." Amara's father stepped forward then, extending his hand. "My daughter's letters have told us much about you and your kindness. We are grateful." The warmth of her family's reception eased the last of Amara's worries. By the time they were all settled in Noah's SUV for the drive back to the farm, her brothers were peppering Noah with questions about tractors and combines, while her mother commented on the beautiful Montana landscape. "It's so different from home," she said, watching the snow-covered mountains pass by. "But I see why you have come to love it, Amara." The subtle emphasis on the word love made Amara glance at her mother, who smiled knowingly. Nothing escaped Mama's attention, especially when it came to matters of the heart. The next few days were among the happiest of Amara's life. Her family marveled at the size and beauty of Horizon Farms, explored the small town with its holiday decorations, and spent long evenings by the fire, sharing stories and getting to know Noah. Her brothers bonded instantly with him, especially when he took them to see the farm's equipment and let them ride in the cab of his biggest tractor. Her father, initially more reserved, warmed to Noah after discovering their shared interest in agricultural innovation. And her mother watched it all with knowing eyes, pulling Amara aside on Christmas Eve as they prepared dinner together in the main house kitchen. "This man loves you," she said simply, her hands never pausing as they shaped dough for chin chin, a sweet Nigerian pastry. Amara felt warmth rise to her cheeks. "We haven't said those words yet." Her mother chuckled. "Words are not always necessary. I see how he looks at you when he thinks no one is watching. Like you are the sun and moon and stars all at once." "And how do I look at him?" Amara asked softly. "The same way," her mother replied with a gentle smile. "It is a good match, my daughter. Different from what we planned, yes. But better, I think." Relief washed through Amara at her mother's approval. "Even though he's not Nigerian? Not from our culture." "Love knows no borders," her mother said wisely. "And a good heart is the same in any language." Christmas morning dawned clear and cold, with fresh snow blanketing the farm in pristine white. True to tradition, Ease was the first awake, running through the guest house and then to the main house, waking everyone with his excitement. They gathered around the towering Christmas tree, where gifts spilled out in colorful profusion. Noah had insisted on buying presents for everyone, despite Amara's protest that their presence was gift enough. "It's my first Christmas with a full house," he had told her. "Let me enjoy it." As paper flew and exclamations of delight filled the room, Amara felt her heart might burst with happiness. Watching her youngest brother's face light up at the tablet Noah had given him, seeing her father examine his new leather briefcase with appreciation, hearing her mother exclaim over the beautiful cashmere shawl, these moments were precious beyond measure. "You haven't opened your gift yet," Noah said quietly, coming to sit beside her on the sofa. He handed her a small, flat package wrapped in silver paper. Amara unwrapped it carefully to reveal a velvet jewelry case larger than the one that held his grandmother's ring. Inside was a gold locket, beautifully crafted and clearly antique. "It was my mother's," Noah explained as Amara lifted it reverently from the case. "Open it." Inside she found a tiny photograph of her entire family on one side. On the other was a picture of herself and Noah, taken at the town's Christmas tree lighting ceremony earlier that month. Both of them were laughing, their faces illuminated by the colorful lights, looking utterly content in each other's company. "So you can always keep your whole heart with you," Noah said softly. "No matter where you are." Tears filled Amara's eyes as the meaning of his gift sank in. He wasn't asking her to choose between her family and him. He was making space in his life for all the people she loved. "Help me put it on?" she asked, turning so he could fasten the chain around her neck. His fingers were warm against her skin as he secured the clasp, then placed a gentle kiss on the nape of her neck. "Perfect," he murmured. Later, after a Christmas feast that combined both Nigerian and American traditions, they all bundled up for a walk around the farm. The late afternoon sun cast long blue shadows across the snow, and their breath formed clouds in the crisp air. Amara and Noah fell slightly behind the others, their gloved hands intertwined. "Happy?" he asked, his eyes crinkling at the corners in the way she loved. "Beyond words," she replied honestly. "You've given me the greatest gift, Noah. Having my family here, seeing them meet you, it means everything." He squeezed her hand. "They're wonderful people. I see where you get your strength, your kindness." They walked in comfortable silence for a moment before Amara gathered her courage to ask the question that had been on her mind all day. "What happens after they leave? After the holidays?" Noah stopped walking, turning to face her as the setting sun painted the snow in shades of pink and gold. "What do you want to happen, Amara?" She looked up at him, this man who had changed her life in ways she could never have imagined. "I want to stay," she said simply. "Here with you. But I also want to go to school like you suggested. I want to learn and grow and become someone who can make a difference, like you do." The smile that spread across Noah's face was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. "Then that's exactly what will happen. You'll go to school and you'll continue working at the farm as much as you want to, and we'll figure out the rest as we go." "Together?" Amara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Noah's answer was to lower his lips to hers in a kiss that held all the promise of their future, strong and sweet and filled with possibility. As they walked on to catch up with her family, the locket warm against Amara's heart, she reflected on the strange and beautiful journey that had brought her to this place. A rejection that had felt like the end of her dreams had actually been the beginning of something far greater. And a man who had once been a stranger had become the center of her world. Christmas at Horizon Farms wasn't what Amara had planned when she left Nigeria. It was infinitely better. January brought new beginnings as Amara started classes at Montana State University. After her family returned to Nigeria, with promises to visit again and invitations for Noah and Amara to come to Nigeria soon, life settled into a new rhythm. 3 days a week, Amara attended classes in agricultural business and sustainable farming practices. The other days she worked at Horizon Farms, applying what she was learning to real-world challenges. Noah supported her educational pursuits wholeheartedly, adjusting her work schedule to accommodate study time and often serving as a sounding board for her ideas and projects. Their relationship deepened as they navigated this new phase together, finding balance between their professional connection and their growing personal commitment. "I never thought I'd be dating a college girl," Noah teased one evening as Amara pored over textbooks at his kitchen table. "Makes me feel like I should buy a Letterman jacket or something." Amara threw an eraser at him, laughing. "You're hardly robbing the cradle. I'm only 5 years younger than you." "Still," he said, coming around to massage her tense shoulders. "Look at you, beautiful, brilliant, and back in school while running half my business operations. You're kind of amazing, you know that?" Warmth spread through Amara at his words. One of the things she loved most about Noah was how he never seemed intimidated by her ambitions or abilities, only proud and supportive. Well, the word had been appearing more frequently in her thoughts, though neither of them had said it aloud yet. It hovered between them in quiet moments, in the way Noah's eyes followed her across a room, in the gentle way Amara straightened his collar before business meetings. They were building something precious and strong, taking their time to ensure its foundation was solid. February brought Valentine's Day and a rare break in Amara's busy schedule. Noah surprised her with dinner at the finest restaurant in Bozeman, followed by tickets to a touring Broadway show. Dressed in a new red dress that made her dark skin glow, Amara felt like a princess as Noah guided her through the theater lobby, his hand warm and steady at the small of her back. "Mr. Taylor," a voice called out, and they turned to see a distinguished older couple approaching. "Senator Whitfield," Noah greeted them, shaking the man's hand. "Mrs. Whitfield. Lovely to see you both." "We heard about your new irrigation system," the senator said. Revolutionary stuff, from what my agricultural advisors tell me. Thank you, sir. We're pretty excited about the results. Noah turned to include Amara in the conversation. This is Amara Okafor, my partner. Amara, Senator, and Mrs. Whitfield. Partner. It was the first time Noah had introduced her with a term that implied their personal relationship rather than just their professional one. The significance wasn't lost on Amara as she shook hands with the couple. Ms. Okafor, what a beautiful name, Mrs. Whitfield said warmly. Are you in the agricultural business as well? Yes, Amara replied, feeling Noah's supportive presence beside her. I work with Noah at Horizon Farms and I'm studying agricultural business at Montana State. Smart and beautiful, the senator observed with a nod of approval to Noah. You'd better hold on to this one, Taylor. That's the plan, sir, Noah said quietly, his eyes meeting Amara's with an intensity that made her heart skip. Later, as they drove home under a sky brilliant with stars, Amara found herself thinking about that moment. Partner, she said. I like that. Noah glanced over at her, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Me too. Seemed right somehow. Better than the help, Amara said, thinking back to Catherine's dismissive words months before. Noah reached across to take her hand. You were never just the help, Amara. Not from the first day. The warmth of his touch and the sincerity in his voice filled Amara with contentment. This was what she had always wanted but never truly believed she would find. A man who saw her, all of her, and valued everything she was and could be. Spring semester brought new challenges as Amara's coursework intensified and Horizon Farms entered its busy planting season. There were days when she barely saw Noah, both of them working from before dawn until late at night. When they did manage to spend time together, it was often brief. A shared cup of coffee at sunrise, a quick kiss as they passed in the office, falling asleep beside each other too exhausted to do more than hold hands. I miss you, Noah said one rare Saturday when they both had a few hours free. They were walking the perimeter of the newly planted north field, checking irrigation lines. Amara leaned against him, breathing in the familiar scent of his aftershave mingled with the earthy smell of the farm. I miss you too. Once finals are over next month, things will calm down. I was thinking, Noah said, his tone casual but with an undercurrent of nervousness that caught Amara's attention. The guest house is great, but, she prompted when he hesitated. Noah stopped walking, turning to face her. But maybe it's time you stop being a guest. Amara's pulse quickened. What exactly are you saying, Noah Taylor? I'm saying I'm tired of walking you to your door at night. Tired of waking up without you. Tired of this strange arrangement where we're together but not really living together. The words tumbled out in a rush as if he'd been holding them back for some time. Move in with me, Amara. Not to the guest house. To the main house. Our house. The proposition wasn't entirely unexpected. They had been practically living together for months anyway, with Amara spending more nights at the main house than at the guest house lately. Still, the formality of the invitation, the permanence it implied, gave her pause. Noah, she began carefully. I love spending time with you. Being with you has become the best part of my days. But, Noah prompted, his expression guarded. But in my culture, moving in together before marriage it would be difficult to explain to my family. Amara had never been overly traditional, but this was one area where she felt the pull of her upbringing. They've been so supportive of us, of everything. I don't want to disappoint them. Noah's face softened with understanding. I should have thought of that. I'm sorry. He took her hands in his. The last thing I want is to put you in an uncomfortable position with your family. Relief washed through Amara at his immediate acceptance. This was another thing she loved about Noah. His respect for her boundaries, her culture, her values. What if? Noah's voice trailed off, and he seemed suddenly nervous again. What if what? Amara encouraged. Noah took a deep breath. What if we got married instead? The world seemed to still around them. The gentle breeze, the distant hum of farm equipment, even the birds overhead falling silent as Amara processed his words. Are you proposing to me in the middle of a field, Noah Taylor? She finally managed, her voice higher than normal. A slow smile spread across his face. Not exactly. This is more of a pre-proposal. To see if it's something you might want to. Might want. Amara repeated, her heart racing. Noah, I know it's fast, he interrupted, suddenly looking uncertain. We've only known each other 9 months. Maybe I'm rushing things. Forget I said anything, we can talk about it when you're ready, when. This time it was Amara who interrupted, pressing her finger to his lips. Noah. Stop talking. He fell silent, his eyes wide and vulnerable. "Ask me properly," she said softly. "Not here, not now. But when you're ready, really ready, ask me properly. And yes, I might want that very much." The relief and joy that spread across Noah's face was beautiful to behold. He pulled her into his arms, lifting her off her feet in an exuberant spin that had her laughing against his neck. "I love you, Amara Okafor," he said as he set her back on her feet, speaking the words aloud for the first time. "God, I love you so much." "I love you too," she whispered, the words feeling like coming home. "More than I ever thought possible." That night, curled together on the porch swing at the main house, watching the stars emerge in the vast Montana sky, they talked about their future. Not just about marriage but about their dreams and plans. Amara shared her vision of creating educational programs to help farmers in Nigeria implement sustainable practices. Noah spoke of expanding Horizon Farms' research division, developing new technology specifically for regions with climate challenges. "We could do both, you know," he said, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her arm. "Divide our time between here and Nigeria. Your family and mine, our family." The thought of bringing her two worlds together filled Amara with joy. "I'd like that," she said. "Very much." As April turned to May and spring fully embraced the farm in green abundance, Amara threw herself into preparing for finals. Noah seemed to understand her need to focus, giving her space while still supporting her in small ways, making sure she had her favorite study snacks, handling more farm business to free up her time, leaving encouraging notes among her textbooks. The day of her final exam, Amara returned to the farm exhausted but triumphant. Her first semester back at school had been challenging but rewarding, and her professors had already encouraged her to consider pursuing a master's degree. She expected to find Noah at the office or in the fields, but instead, a note on the guesthouse door directed her to the rose garden behind the main house, a project they had started together earlier in the spring. Curious, Amara followed the stone path to the garden, stopping short when she reached the entrance. The newly planted roses were in their first bloom, filling the air with sweet fragrance, but it was the transformation of the garden itself that took her breath away. Tiny white lights had been strung between the trellises, glowing softly in the late afternoon light. A small table had been set in the center of the garden, covered with a white cloth and set for dinner for two. And there, beside the table, stood Noah, looking more nervous than she had ever seen him. "Noah? What is all this?" Amara asked, stepping into the garden. "I thought we should celebrate the end of your first semester," he said, coming forward to take her hands. "You've worked so hard." "It's beautiful," she said, looking around in wonder. "But you didn't have to go to all this trouble." "I wanted to," Noah replied simply. "And there's something else." Amara's heart began to race as Noah guided her to a small bench near the roses they had planted together. As they sat, he took both her hands in his expression serious but filled with love. "Amara, these past months with you have been the happiest of my life. You came here under difficult circumstances, but you turned what could have been a tragedy into something beautiful and strong, just like you've done with everything in your life." Tears pricked at Amara's eyes as Noah continued, his voice growing more confident with each word. "You are the most extraordinary woman I've ever known. Your kindness, your intelligence, your determination, they humble me every day. You make me want to be better, to build something meaningful with my life and my work." Reaching into his pocket, Noah pulled out the small velvet box that had once held his grandmother's ring. "You asked me to wait until I was really ready, to ask you properly when the time was right." He opened the box to reveal the ring, its diamond catching the light of the setting sun. "I'm ready now, Amara. I've never been more ready for anything in my life." Sliding from the bench onto one knee, Noah looked up at her with all the love in his heart shining in his eyes. "Amara Okafor, will you marry me? Will you build a life with me, here and wherever else our dreams take us?" For a moment, Amara couldn't speak, overwhelmed by emotion. This wasn't the marriage she had come to America seeking, a practical arrangement with a stranger for financial security. This was so much more, so much deeper and truer than she had ever dared to hope for. "Yes," she finally whispered, then louder, "Yes, Noah Taylor. I will marry you." Noah's face broke into the most beautiful smile as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her all along. Then he was on the bench beside her, pulling her into his arms for a kiss that tasted of joy and promises and forever. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and laughing, Noah rested his forehead against hers. "I can't believe you said yes. Did you think I wouldn't?" Amara asked, puzzled by his surprise. "I hoped," Noah admitted. But part of me still wonders what someone as amazing as you sees in a plain old farmer like me. Amara cradled his face in her hands, wanting him to truly hear her words. I see a man with the kindest heart I've ever known. A man who looks at people and sees their value, not their color or their background. A man who works every day to make the world better for others. She stroked his cheek, her new ring catching the fading light. And yes, you're a farmer. A brilliant, innovative, compassionate farmer who has created something extraordinary here. None of that is plain or old, Noah Taylor. The vulnerability in his eyes gave way to wonder as her words sank in. I love you, he said simply. So much it scares me sometimes. Good, Amara replied with a smile. Because I plan to keep scaring you for at least the next 50 years. They stayed in the rose garden until the stars came out, planning their future together. Noah wanted a small wedding at the farm. Amara wanted her family present. They both agreed to a June ceremony, before the busiest part of the growing season. We should call your parents, Noah said as they finally headed back to the main house, hand in hand. I already asked your father for his blessing when they were here at Christmas, but they'll want to hear the news from you. Amara stopped in her tracks, staring at him. You asked my father? Back at Christmas? Noah looked sheepish. I knew then, Amara. I've known since, well, probably since that first night you showed up at James's house. Something in me recognized something in you even then. Overwhelmed by his words, by the depth of feeling between them, Amara could only draw him close for another kiss under the vast Montana sky that had become her second home. Later that night, as they lay together planning their wedding, their future, their dreams, Amara thought about the strange journey that had brought her to this moment. A rejection that had felt like the end of her world had actually been the beginning of something far more wonderful than she could have imagined. What are you thinking about? Noah asked, noticing her distant expression. About Pat's, Amara replied softly. And how sometimes the one that seems most broken leads to the most beautiful destination. Noah pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. Well, this destination is just our beginning. The best is yet to come. Looking up at the man who had become her heart's home, Amara knew he was right. This was just the beginning of their story, and what a glorious story it would be. June arrived with perfect blue skies and fields of wildflowers painting the Montana landscape in vibrant color. Horizon Farms had never looked more beautiful, as if nature itself were celebrating the upcoming wedding. The past month had been a whirlwind of preparation. Amara's family had arrived 2 weeks before the ceremony, bringing with them traditional Nigerian wedding attire and decorations. Mrs. Bennett had overseen the transformation of the farm's great barn into a reception venue, with fairy lights, flowers, and tables arranged to accommodate the blend of American and Nigerian customs. On the evening before the wedding, after the rehearsal dinner, Amara found herself alone on the porch of the guest house, her last night there before officially moving into the main house as Noah's wife. The thought filled her with quiet joy and a sense of rightness that had been growing steadily since the day Noah proposed. A soft knock at the door interrupted her reverie. Opening it, she found her mother standing there, a small wrapped package in her hands. Mama, I thought you would be resting. Tomorrow will be a long day. Her mother smiled, the lines around her eyes crinkling with affection. How could I rest when my only daughter is getting married in the morning? She held out the package. I brought something for you. A tradition in our family. Amara invited her mother in and they sat together on the small sofa. Opening the package, Amara gasped at the sight of a delicate gold bracelet studded with tiny sapphires. It was my grandmother's and her grandmother's before that, her mother explained, taking the bracelet and fastening it around Amara's wrist. Every bride in our family has worn it on her wedding day for 5 generations. It's beautiful, Amara whispered, touching the cool metal reverently. Thank you, Mama. Her mother took her hands, her expression growing serious. I want you to know how proud your father and I are of you, Amara. When you left Nigeria we worried, not just for your safety but for your happiness. We feared you might sacrifice your joy for our financial security. Mama. Let me finish, her mother said gently. What happened with that first man? It was a blessing in disguise. You found your way to someone who sees your worth, who loves you for exactly who you are. She squeezed Amara's hands. Noah is a good man. The kind of man a mother prays her daughter will find. Tears filled Amara's eyes at her mother's words. I'm so grateful you approve of him, of us. How could we not? Her mother asked with a smile. He treats you with respect and kindness. He values your mind as well as your heart. And he has opened his home not just to you, but to your family as well. She touched the engagement ring on Amara's finger. "This is not the marriage we planned for you, my daughter. It is far better." They embraced, years of love and understanding flowing between them. When her mother finally left to return to the main house, Amara felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. Tomorrow she would begin a new chapter of her life with the man she loved, blending their two worlds into something new and beautiful. Dawn broke clear and warm on the wedding day. Following tradition, Amara and Noah had spent the night apart, she in the guest house, he at his foreman's home. Mrs. Bennet arrived early with a breakfast tray and a team of women to help Amara prepare. The morning passed in a blur of activity. Amara's hair was braided in an intricate pattern incorporating both Nigerian tradition and Western elegance. Her makeup was applied with a light hand, enhancing her natural beauty rather than masking it. And then came the moment to don her wedding attire. She had chosen to honor both cultures in her dress, a stunning white gown with a modern silhouette for the ceremony, and a traditional Nigerian ensemble in vibrant blue and gold for the reception. As Mrs. Bennet and her mother helped her into the white gown, Amara caught sight of herself in the full-length mirror and paused, hardly recognizing the radiant woman who looked back at her. "You look like a queen," her mother said softly, adjusting the delicate veil. "Noah won't know what hit him," Mrs. Bennet agreed, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. A knock at the door announced the arrival of Amara's father, handsome in a dark suit with a traditional Nigerian cap. His eyes widened when he saw his daughter. "My little girl," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "All grown up and more beautiful than I could have imagined." The ceremony was set to take place in the rose garden, now in full bloom with the flowers Amara and Noah had planted together. As she walked the path toward the garden on her father's arm, soft music floated through the air, a string quartet playing a piece Noah had commissioned for the occasion, blending melodies from both their cultures. And then she saw him, waiting for her at the end of the flower-lined aisle. Noah looked more handsome than she had ever seen him, dressed in a charcoal suit that highlighted his broad shoulders and strong frame. But it was the expression on his face when he caught sight of her that Amara would remember for the rest of her life. Pure wonder, as if he were witnessing a miracle. Time seemed to slow as she walked toward him, aware of the guests on either side but seeing only Noah. Her family, his friends, their employees, all faded into the background as she focused on the man who would soon be her husband. When she reached him and her father placed her hand in Noah's, the warmth of his touch grounded her. "You are breathtaking," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. The ceremony itself was a perfect blend of traditions. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promises of love and respect and partnership that moved many guests to tears. They exchanged rings, his grandmother's ring now permanently on Amara's finger, and a matching band for Noah that they had chosen together. "By the authority vested in me," the minister said at last, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Noah, you may kiss your bride." As Noah drew her into his arms for their first kiss as a married couple, cheers and ululations erupted from the assembled guests. Pulling back slightly, Noah looked into Amara's eyes with all the love in his heart. "Hello, Mrs. Taylor," he said softly. "Hello, my husband," she replied, the words filling her with joy. The reception was everything they had hoped for, a true celebration of their union and the coming together of their cultures. Amara changed into her Nigerian attire, drawing appreciative gasps from the American guests as she and Noah made their entrance to the pulsing rhythms of Nigerian drums. There was dancing, so much dancing. Amara's brothers taught Noah traditional Nigerian moves, while Noah's friends introduced Amara's family to American line dances. Food from both cultures flowed in abundance, and toasts were made in English and Igbo, celebrating the couple and their future together. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the farm, Noah led Amara away from the festivities to a quiet spot overlooking the fields. "Happy?" he asked, his arm around her waist. "More than I have words for," she replied, leaning into his embrace. "It was perfect, Noah. All of it." "There's one more surprise," he said, a hint of nervousness in his voice. "I hope you'll like it." Before she could ask what he meant, a familiar vehicle came into view on the long driveway leading to the farm. As it drew closer, Amara recognized it with a gasp of surprise. James Miller's truck. "Noah? What is this?" she asked, tension creeping into her voice. "Trust me," he said softly, squeezing her hand. "Please." The truck stopped near them, and James stepped out, looking uncomfortable in dress clothes that didn't quite fit his frame. He carried a large envelope in one hand. "Congratulations," he said awkwardly, nodding to them both. "Beautiful ceremony." "Thank you for coming, James," Noah said, his voice neutral but not unkind. "Did you bring it?" James nodded, holding out the envelope to Amara. This is for you. A wedding gift, I guess you could say. Confused, Amara accepted the envelope and opened it to find legal documents inside. As she scanned the first page, her eyes widened in shock. This is the deed to your farm? She asked James, looking up in disbelief. He shuffled his feet, looking more uncomfortable than ever. Not anymore. It's yours now. Well, the land is. Farm's not much to speak of these days. I don't understand, Amara said, looking between the two men. Noah's expression was gentle as he explained. James has been struggling for years. Bank was about to foreclose. When I heard, I made him an offer, fair market value for the land, with the condition that he be the one to give you the deed. As a wedding gift. And an apology. That had been one of their biggest challenges in the early days of Hope Center. Overcoming the suspicion that they were trying to impose Western agricultural practices without respect for indigenous knowledge. It had taken time and patience to demonstrate their commitment to true partnership, to learning as much as teaching. The Minister of Agriculture called this morning, Amara said as they walked together toward the main building. He's confirmed his attendance at the conference. And he wants to discuss expanding our program to 3 more regions in Nigeria. Noah's face lit up at the news. That's fantastic. If we can secure the government backing, we could double our impact next year. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a farm truck pulling up to the administration building. The driver, one of their longtime employees, waved as he parked. Special delivery from town, he called out, jumping down from the cab. Came in on the morning flight. Curious, Amara and Noah approached as the driver opened the passenger door to reveal a familiar figure climbing out stiffly after the long ride. James? Amara exclaimed in surprise. We weren't expecting you until next week for the conference. James Miller looked older than his 50 years, his once robust frame thinner, his hair more gray than brown. But his handshake was firm as he greeted them. Thought I'd come early, see if you could use an extra pair of hands getting ready. Plus, I brought something you might want to see before the big event. He reached back into the truck for a worn leather portfolio. Over the years, James had become an unlikely ally in their work. After selling his farm, he had traveled through farming communities in the American South, eventually taking a position with an agricultural outreach program in Alabama. His first-hand knowledge of the challenges facing small farmers in the region had proven invaluable to Hope Center's domestic programs. The 3 of them moved to a shaded patio area, where James spread the contents of his portfolio on the table. Found these in an archive at Tuskegee. Thought they might be of interest for your historical display. Amara gasped as she recognized what she was seeing. Photographs and letters documenting the work of black agricultural scientists in the early 20th century, including George Washington Carver's groundbreaking research on soil conservation and crop rotation. These are incredible, she said, carefully examining the brittle papers. How did you get access to them? James looked slightly embarrassed. Mentioned your name. Turns out you've got quite a reputation in agricultural education circles these days, Mrs. Taylor. Noah squeezed her shoulder with pride. She certainly does. After James went to settle into the guest house, the same one where Amara had once stayed, now part of their visitor accommodations, Noah and Amara continued their tour of the facility, making final preparations for the conference. He's changed, Amara observed as they walked. James, I mean. Noah nodded thoughtfully. People can surprise you. Sometimes they just need the right opportunity to become better versions of themselves. It was something they had both seen repeatedly in their work, how education and opportunity could transform not just farming practices but the farmers themselves, opening minds and hearts to new possibilities. By late afternoon, Amara was feeling the fatigue Mrs. Bennett had warned about. Noah insisted she rest while he handled the remaining tasks, guiding her to their favorite spot on the porch of the main house, where a comfortable swing offered a view of the entire property. As she settled onto the swing, Amara realized they had come full circle. This was where they had sat during those early days of their relationship, getting to know each other as the sun set over the wheat fields. Now those same fields were part of Hope Center, and the porch had witnessed their first tentative conversations, their engagement, the first steps of their son, and countless moments of quiet companionship. Noah joined her a short while later, carrying 2 glasses of iced tea. Chitty's helping Mrs. Bennett make cookies, he reported, settling beside her. Or eating cookie dough more accurately. Amara laughed, leaning against her husband's solid warmth. Like father, like son. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the activity across the center as the day's programs wound down. Visiting farmers chatted in groups, sharing insights from their lessons. Staff members prepared for the evening meal that would bring everyone together in the communal dining hall. "Did you ever imagine this?" Amara asked softly. "When you found me that day at James's house, that we would end up here?" Noah was quiet for a moment, his arm tightening around her shoulders. "Not the details," he admitted. "But from the moment I saw you, I knew my life would never be the same. You had this light in you even through your tears. A strength that took my breath away." The memory of that painful day, now transformed by time and love into something almost sweet, brought a smile to Amara's lips. "I was so lost, so scared. And yet you didn't break," Noah said, his voice full of admiration. "You adapted, you persevered. It's what made me fall in love with you, watching you turn what could have been defeat into a new beginning." Their reflective mood was interrupted by the patter of little feet as Chitty burst onto the porch, his face smeared with chocolate. "Cookies ready," he announced importantly, climbing onto the swing between them. "Mrs. Bennet says come eat before they gone." Noah laughed, lifting their son onto his shoulders. "Well, we can't keep Mrs. Bennet waiting, can we? You know how she gets when people are late for her cookies." As they walked together toward the kitchen, Amara felt a profound sense of contentment wash over her. This life, with its blend of cultures and traditions, its challenges and rewards, its moments of hard work and sweet rest, was richer and more fulfilling than anything she could have imagined when she first set out from Nigeria. She had come to America seeking security through marriage, a practical arrangement that would help her family. Instead, she had found true partnership with a man who valued her mind as well as her heart, who saw her as an equal, not a possession. Together, they had built not just a family but a legacy that would continue to grow and evolve long after they were gone. That evening, after Chitty was tucked into bed with stories of both Montana cowboys and Nigerian legends, Amara and Noah stood on the back porch of their home, watching the stars emerge in the vast Montana sky. Noah's arm was warm around her waist, his hand resting protectively over the daughter growing within her. "What shall we name her?" he asked softly, their ongoing discussion of baby names resuming in this quiet moment. Amara had been considering this for weeks, wanting a name that would honor both their heritages while giving their daughter her own unique identity. "What about Hope?" she suggested. "After this place, this dream we've built together." Noah's smile in the darkness was as warm as summer sunshine. "Hope Taylor," he said, testing the name. "It's perfect. Like her mother." Drawing her closer, he kissed her with a tenderness that still made her heart race after all these years together. When they finally broke apart, both a little breathless, Noah rested his forehead against hers. "I love you, Amara Taylor," he whispered. "More every day." "And I love you," she replied, the words as true now as the first time she had spoken them. "My heart, my home, my hope." As they stood together under the vast canopy of stars, Amara thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. A journey that had begun with rejection and tears, only to lead to acceptance and joy beyond measure. A journey that proved sometimes the wrong door closing can lead to the right one opening, if only you have the courage to keep walking forward. In Noah's arms, with their son sleeping peacefully inside and their daughter growing strong within her, Amara knew she had found her true home, not in a place but in the love they had built together. A love that transcended color and culture, that grew stronger with each challenge overcome, that promised to sustain them through all the chapters of their lives still waiting to be written. And as the moon rose over Horizon Farms, casting silver light across the fields of Hope Center, Amara whispered a silent prayer of gratitude for the rejection that had led her to true acceptance, for the closed door that had guided her to the open one, for the painful moment that had ultimately brought her the greatest joy. In the eyes of James Miller, she had been only a color, a disappointment, something not ordered. But in Noah's eyes, from that very first night, she had been seen, truly seen, for the person she was inside. And in that recognition, that pure acceptance, she had found not just love but the freedom to become her fullest self. "What are you thinking about?" Noah asked softly, noticing her thoughtful expression. Amara smiled up at her husband, at the face that had become as familiar and necessary to her as her own heartbeat. "I was thinking that sometimes life's greatest blessings come disguised as its greatest disappointments." Noah nodded, understanding without needing further explanation. "And sometimes the most beautiful journeys start with getting lost." "I'm glad I got lost," Amara whispered. "I'm glad I found you." "No," Noah corrected gently, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We found each other. And that has made all the difference." As they stood together in the growing darkness, the lights of Hope Center glowing in the distance, Amara felt a sense of completion, of having come full circle. The mail-order bride who had been rejected for the color of her skin had found not just acceptance but celebration of everything she was. The frightened young woman who had arrived in a strange land with nothing but hope had built a legacy that would touch lives across continents. And the heart that had once been broken by cruelty and prejudice now overflowed with a love so expansive it seemed to encompass the entire star-filled sky above them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new mountains to climb together. But tonight, in this moment of perfect peace, Amara Taylor knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be, in the arms of the man who had seen beyond her skin to the woman beneath, the man who had recognized her true worth when others had been blind to it, the man who had loved her not in spite of their differences but because of the unique beauty those differences created when woven together. "Come inside," Noah said after a long, contented silence. "It's getting cool out here." Hand in hand they walked back into the home they had built together. Not just the physical structure but the family, the community, the shared purpose that gave their lives meaning. And as they crossed the threshold, Amara felt once again the truth that had transformed her life. Sometimes the greatest love stories begin with rejection. And sometimes, what seems like the end is really just the beginning of something far more beautiful than we ever dared to dream.